Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for having me back. This is the follow-up. This is part 2 of this presentation, Saving Your Life with Wearable Technology. This will be given as the APC, as an APCUG presentation in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm very grateful that you've allowed me to give it to you tonight, because you're the second club that I've given it to, and I've changed the slides around and changed some sequences. So I want to get it in a good flow for the presentation with APCUG. So if it's a little rough around the edges, I'm sorry, and we'll see how it goes tonight. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things tonight. You of course remember Mary. You've all seen part 1. It's very important that you saw part 1 first. So you know that Mary is a 74-year-old, and I want Mary's fictitious person, but I want, as we go through the presentation, I'd really like for you to think about your own circumstances and how this might relate to you. That's important. So Mary's a 74-year-old widowed widower who lives full-time at Silver Ridge Resort, which is the resort that I live at in Mesa, Arizona, when I'm there in the winter. Now, Mary has lived at Silver Ridge for 7 years and has won the hearts of all the residents. If you live in a resort, there's always a Mary there, and everybody loves Mary. She lives by herself. She's widowed, so this is a problem, well, it's an inevitable issue as we get older, and she lives by herself in a park model, which is a trailer, with a little room on the side called an Arizona room. And she has a good friend across the street, and she walks with her every morning at 9 o'clock, and they walk around the perimeter of Silver Ridge Resort, which is about half a mile, and then they have a cup of tea. Everybody plays pickleball at our resort. I mean, I don't know if you guys are pickleball crazy down there, but Mary is still in the pickleball club, even though she's 74. And a highlight of her whole week is, of course, our computer club meetings. And I had to put that in because I wrote the story, right? Now, Mary's been widowed for 12 years. She has a daughter. Now, the daughter is an important part of her history, and then that she lives not too far away in Palm Desert, about 4-hour drive, and she's an accountant. So she's computer literate and understands about computers. Mary has pretty good computer skills as well, and she often Skypes with Meg. Mary doesn't drive anymore, and she uses Uber for transportation. Mary has a doctor. She has a family doctor who she sees not often, but she's seen him for quite a while. She sees him about twice a year. She has mild high blood pressure, and she recently saw Dr. Jones, and Dr. Jones examined her, and everything was fine. She said she was going to lose a little weight, play a little more pickleball, and keep in good shape. So that was great. On July 2nd of this year, Mary was walking home from the mailroom. We have a central mailroom where you go and get your mail, and she was walking back to her house, and she felt a little bit dizzy, a little bit lightheaded. Now, how many of you tonight have had a little bit of a dizzy spell or felt a little bit lightheaded at times? Anyway, she had no chest pain or palpitations, and she thought she just would sit down on the grass. So if you see here, you'll see the grass here, and she sat down there and felt fine. A couple of seconds later, this passed, and John, of course, everyone in our resort has a golf cart, so he drove by, he saw her sitting there, and he took her back to her house. And she of course called Meg, and Meg said, you better get in and see Dr. Jones the next day. And she did. She phoned for an appointment, and got one the next day with Dr. Jones. Now, of course, you know it's a made-up story, because who phones their doctor and gets in the next day, right? That's not going to happen. But anyway, she did. And when she went there the next day, Dr. Jones saw her and took her blood pressure and pulse, and everything was fine. So he said to her, you know, Mary, it's a little dizzy spell. It's the first time you ever had it. Let's not worry. If it happens again, come back and see me. So she did. She went home, and On July 17th, she was cooking supper, and again, the same thing happened, a bit dizzy, and she had to go and sit in her lazy boy rocker here. And she didn't have any chest pain, or she didn't have any palpitations. And of course, she went back the next day to see Dr. Jones, who said to her, well, we are going to better do some tests now. So he sent her for some testing. And she said, well, Meg's coming on Friday, and I was going to cook Meg dinner. He said, okay, we'll do it next week. So she went home with the lab recs, and she was going to have her test done the following week. Well, at night, she got up to go for a pee at about 2 in the morning. And when she got off the toilet, same thing happened. She got a dizzy spell again, but this time she passed out. And as she hit the floor, she could feel her hip crack, and she now was stuck between the toilet and the shower, and she couldn't move. And of course, she called out for help, but there is nobody there. There's nobody in this resort in the summer. It's a seasonal resort, so there was nobody there. And Alice came by the next morning at 8 o'clock and found her, and she was very cold. Her pulse was low, and she had a very low blood pressure and in shock. So on arrival at Banner Hospital, she had a temporary pacemaker inserted in the emergency department. She was transferred to ICU, where she had a permanent pacemaker in, and then she had her hip repaired and made an uneventful recovery, except she doesn't play pickleball anymore. So in the original part 1, we went through the importance of measuring your heart rate and keeping continuing to monitor that, and watch for a very slow heart rate, which is very common. Remember in the graph I showed you, it's very, very common, and also to watch for atrial fibrillation. So those are 2 things that we talked about in part 1. But one of the things I wanted to look at now is not so much monitoring your pulse or monitoring your looking for atrial fibrillation, but what could Mary have done to be better prepared for a medical emergency? Well, the first thing Mary could have done is she could have planned for a medical emergency. And that's something that we all have to think about. What is going to happen if we have to call or if we get into trouble? So we need to think about this, and we need to plan for a medical emergency. We need a plan in place. Now, what were some of the clues in Mary's history that could be expanded on? Well, of course, she lived in a resort that's seasonal. So there's 700 homes there in the winter when everybody's there, but in the summer there's only 50. So there's nobody going to find you. There's nobody around. There's not a soul there. But isolation is a problem with the elderly, in that if you're living in a rural area, in a rural home, and you're all by yourself, you need some to plan for an emergency, and you need communication. Mary has some internet and computer skills, which is very positive. Remember, I said she Skyped and she came to our computer club. The nice thing about Silver Ridge is that it has a fairly good internet system. And Huey and I talk about this all the time in our Tech for Seniors, and we talk about internet and Starlink, because the ability for seniors to live on their own and effectively have a safe environment to live in is going to boil down to having a fast, reliable internet. And there are many places in Canada and the United States that there are no, in the rural areas, where you cannot get reliable or any internet at all. And this is a huge barrier to living independently alone. And this is certainly something that Starlink and some of the other companies that will be putting satellite systems up should be able to provide a universal internet to everybody. She has a caring daughter who visits regularly, and I think could be very supportive in Mary continuing to live alone. And of course, she had good medical support. So what was Mary's diagnosis? Excuse me. She had we don't need to go into that again. We did that whole story in part 1, but she had a heart problem and she required a pacemaker. What happened is she fell at night going to the bathroom, which is a big problem when people get up at night. Often there's falls because of a variety of factors, but but she fell at night. And as a result of the fall, she lived alone. She fractured her hip and couldn't move. So this created a big problem and almost killed her. I mean, it could have been this simple fall. You know, she might have died that night in a very sad situation, and it almost proved fatal. So how can smart living be a solution to this? What could have we done for Mary that would have made this all better? Like what could have we done with Mary that would have made this better? And if you look at all the systems, I think I've tried to categorize this into 4 different systems. There's sort of personal monitors that we've talked about. These are health personal monitors such as watches, devices that you can wear. These are, and this will affect your health, your location, and your notification. Then there's a group of devices called Internet devices, Internet of Things devices, and this is home automation. And these are safety things that we can put in your house, communication, mobility, thermostats. There's all these devices. Now, these aren't personal monitoring devices. These are devices in your home that can help with this independent living. And then, of course, there's the third part, which I have classified them into peripheral home security. And there's locks, alarms, cameras, all sorts of things that we can put in there that involve security. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the social communication factor. In other words, keeping people happy and being able to communicate. And there's some interesting work that's being done with that. So this is how it gets sort of complicated because there's a lot of things to talk about. And those are, I like to keep things simple. And those are the 4 areas that I've boiled it down to. Now, fall detection is huge. This is an emergency notification. Now, we'll talk about Mary and how, obviously, one of the problems when Mary fell, she needed to call for help. And that's that's emergency notification. And we now have devices that do fall detection. In other words, the device will actually, when you fall, it knows when you fall. And the Apple Watch, of course, again, is leaps and bounds ahead of everybody. They have spent a lot of time on research and with their watch, and actually have it programmed now so that it knows if you've fallen. And this is, you might think, well, that's a simple thing to do, but it isn't, because you could stumble, you could sit down hard, all sorts of things you could do that wouldn't be an actual fall. And the Apple Watch does know when you fall that in fact you have fallen. And when it detects that you've fallen, it will, well, there's another slide coming up in a minute, but it will ask you if you are safe, and if it isn't, then it will contact whoever you set it up to contact. And this is called fall detection. Now, you may think this would be easy to do, but it isn't. And Apple really is the only one that has really got the system working well. Samsung Active 2, which is a watch that's been out now for about a year, has it coming, but still hasn't been on it. It still hasn't turned on yet. And today, those of you who watched the Samsung Watch 3, the big Samsung event this morning, where they released all their new products and their new watch again, it has the capability of fall detection, but the software hasn't been approved in the United States yet, so it's not turned on. So again, Apple, it's in the watch, the Samsung Watch, but it's not turned on and won't be turned on for a little while yet. So it is not that easy to do this. But anyway, the fall detection is certainly, Apple is leading that in that. And this is what happens if you fall and you're wearing your watch. It will, you can either click on I'm okay, or there's an emergency notification which will be programmed to whoever you've told it to call in an emergency. So either I'm okay, so you have the 2 options, and then that's right in the watch. And that, of course, is also internationally. So, Apple has arranged for this to be used on an international basis. Now, what I wanted to talk a little bit about is there also are apps, and this is an app called, it's a medical alert app, and it's called Fall Call Lite. And this app is a free app that provides 5 caregivers with GPS location, heart rate information, battery status, pairing, and monitoring of people. So it is a free app that allows communication between caregivers and a senior. And I thought this was an interesting product. This is the Watch 3, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the show today. This was released today. Unfortunately, I mean, it's a great watch, and it's going to be a competitor to the Apple Watch, but unfortunately, because of regulations, the atrial fibrillation detection and the fall detection are not turned on, and they won't be. And so I'm not going to buy. I had my money and my credit card in hand to buy that today, but when I found out it's not turned on yet, this is just an expensive watch without some specifics that we need. So until they can get it approved and get the software turned on, I will not be purchasing this watch. And again, this is the Active 2, which it has been available now for a year. It has, again, the capability of this, but to have the fall detection and atrial fibrillation detection turned on requires approval from each government, each country actually. So again, Apple has gone around and got it approved in most of the countries. So that's how come they're ahead of us. Now, when you start to look at home automation and what you can do for somebody like Mary, it may be very complicated for you. You may not understand about all these devices we're talking about, and you may not understand about setting up home networks and stuff like that, and it's all just a bit fuzzy. So there's companies that do that for you. So if it's all sort of a bit, you know, you need some help, but you're not sure how to do all this, rest assured there's lots of companies that will do all this and help you with it. And one of them is called Life Alert, which I've showed you here. And this is another one called Medical Guardian. And I'm not endorsing these two. I've just chosen these off the research I've done. They seem to be good companies, but these are 2 companies that you would call up and they would set the stuff up for you. You don't actually have to do it yourself. However, if you do want to set it up, I want to talk a little bit about some of the services that you can do right now, and we'll talk a little bit about home networks. So the first thing that we talked about earlier is that you will need a fast internet to do this. You need a fast, reliable internet. It will not work on a hotspot. If you're using a hotspot, that what we're going to be discussing today won't cut it. And there are so coming into your house or into where you were living, your internet will come in a variety of different ways. It really doesn't make any difference. You'll have it either coming in as cable. You'll have it coming in as DSL, which is a telephone line. You may have fiber optic coming in. Certainly in the future, we will be looking at 5G, and this is probably about another year before 5G is going to be coming in. And then of course, what Huey talks about all the time on our show is Starlink. And so there's a variety of methods in which you should be able to get a fast internet coming into your house, and you would have a modem and a router, and that would equal a fast internet. So let's look at your home network and how you might want to set it up. So the thing that you want to look at now when you're setting this up is your router. And we could talk, I do a course on routers, and there are many different things that we can talk about routers, but something that's not commonly talked about is how many devices can I connect to this router? And this is one of the devices when you're looking at setting this up, you need to know on your router how many devices you can connect to it, because you may be connecting light bulbs, you may be connecting security things. It's very easy to get 100 devices connected to your network. And so if you've gone and bought a router that only connects 30 devices, this isn't very good. So you need to, and this is where you'll need the help with probably some people from Best Buy or some, because you'll need to know how many devices you can connect. Now also, it is important, most routers today will be dual band routers. They broadcast on 2 frequencies, not 1, but 2. And it's either 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz. Now, it's important when you do buy a router that, and most of the routers you will buy will be dual band routers, but a lot of these devices that we're going to connect can connect on both frequencies, and it makes them work a lot better. So again, you'll want a dual band router, which isn't too difficult because most of them would all be dual band routers sold today. But you'll also want to know, when you ask the salesman, when you buy a router, how many devices does it connect? Now, when you connect, this is sort of how you would do it. You would have your internet coming in, you have your modem connected to your router, and this gives you your Wi-Fi signal, which is going to be your home network. One of the things, big mistakes people make, is that I see them and their computer is sitting right next to their router and they're using Wi-Fi. One of the problems is when we start connecting all these devices onto your Wi-Fi system, it's going to get a little bit competitive. So I always like to see, if you have your computer sitting very close to your router, please plug it in. Use an Ethernet cable. This is an Ethernet cable here at the back, and just plug it into your router. A plugged-in connection on your computer to your router is the way to go. And I realize sometimes it's not possible, but I see so many times when I visit people's homes, they have their router sitting a foot from their computer and they're doing Wi-Fi. And so if you can, it's always better to plug your router or your computer right into the router. Now, we have Wi-Fi then, and then we can come down now, and to our Wi-Fi signal, we can connect our home network and our Internet of Things, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Oh, the other thing I wanted to remember is a lot of you will have combo router modems, and I would also not recommend that because it won't give you the flexibility to get the number of devices that you're going to need. Okay, so now we have your modem, we have your router set up, and what we're going to talk a little bit about now is we have our Wi-Fi here, you'll see in yellow, and it comes down that will connect to our home network. But in this slide I've shown is that our router also is connected to a smart home hub. Now that's interesting. What the heck is a smart home hub? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that because this is a way in which we can connect a lot of these devices, come up to a smart home hub, which does not connect to your Wi-Fi. It comes up and will connect right to your router. And there are a number of hubs that are available, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So now we get a little more complicated. So let's come down here. We have our modem, we have our router, and we come down, we have Wi-Fi here, and we connect our home net. This is our home network. So let's say the first thing we want to connect is our Google Assistant. Let's say we have a Google product, a Google Nest Home. There are a lot of different products that Google connects to your home network, and it connects by Wi-Fi. And so your Google device would connect, and we'll talk a little bit about some of these devices, but it connects to Wi-Fi. Of course, you've heard probably about Amazon Echoes. There's a lot of Amazon products. We're going to talk about that. And these devices, again, connect up through your home network, and they connect to your Wi-Fi. Now, Apple also makes a bunch of devices as well. They make, if you have an Apple ecosystem that you use, they as well come up and they will connect onto your home network, and it comes up and connects to your Wi-Fi. And again, Cortana or any of the Microsoft devices as well use Wi-Fi. So all these devices, these are all the commercial sort of devices that you'd find at Best Buy, and these will all be helpful, and we're going to go over these in a minute and talk about them, but they all connect to your Wi-Fi. And this is, of course, gets very competitive as we have more and more of these devices. So we're going to talk, and in the bottom here, we're going to talk about, I have to throw in some new terminology, Zigbee and Z-Wave. We'll talk about that in a sec, but I want you to see that we can connect these devices as well to some of the Amazon products. So, all right, let's come over here to the right now, because remember, on the left we have our Wi-Fi. But what I said earlier, remember I talked about the Smart Home Hub. And the Smart Home Hub is a way in which we can add a lot of these devices and we don't use Wi-Fi. And why I'm explaining all this to you is because one of the ways in which you can do this in a better form is sort of to have a coordinated approach to this. If you just go and buy some devices that work one way and some devices that work another, you'll get confused and it won't work as well. So let's take a look at a Smart Home Hub. And we're going to talk about this a bit now. This is a device, and there are many of these devices made, and Samsung makes one. It's called the Samsung Smart Home Hub. But these are hubs that plug directly into the router. And the devices that connect to these hubs connect not through Wi-Fi, but they connect through a different radio frequency, and the two that are used is called Zigbee and Z-Wave. So these are two totally different radio frequencies that are not Wi-Fi. And so your devices can connect to your home hub, and then the home hub connects right to your router, so you're not using Wi-Fi. Now, how might that be? So if we were going to connect, and here I went and I showed you, if you had a Nest thermostat, a lot of people have thermostats made by Google's Nest, and they connect their Nest thermostat directly to the Wi-Fi. Let's say you wanted to do a light bulb. Suppose you want to connect, you might have 30 or 40 light bulbs in your house, and you want to run all your light bulbs and turn your light bulbs on and off. And this is done, again, you might want to connect them, and a lot of light bulbs you buy will connect by Wi-Fi. So you're going to have lots of these light bulbs connected to Wi-Fi. However, what would be a lot better approach would be a company called Sengled makes light bulbs, and they are actually a lot cheaper than buying all these Wi-Fi light bulbs, and they have a hub. So you could actually take and plug a hub directly into your router that's not Wi-Fi, and in fact you can plug up to 60 light bulbs in this hub. So again, this takes the stress off your Wi-Fi. You would simply buy this hub and plug it directly into your router, and it would manage all your light bulbs in your house, and you're not putting the stress on your Wi-Fi. And this gives you, these are not expensive. This was $35.99 this is in Amazon, and this is the hub that you would plug directly into your router. And there are many hubs that you can plug in, and the hubs for security cameras, the Arlo system uses a hub. Many different types of devices use hubs to plug in directly to your router rather than using your Wi-Fi. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what these devices are. Amazon has a pretty impressive lineup of devices, and I own a bunch of these devices. And so I'm going to talk about some of the ways in which this might have helped Mary. And so these are the devices I own. I own an Amazon Echo Show, which is on the left side here. This actually has a monitor. It has you can actually, it's like having It's like a computer monitor here, and you can talk and do all the things that you want, and it's connected to the internet. This is called an Echo Dot. This is a device as well. It connects to the internet that you can talk to. And this is a Sonos speaker that I have that is Alexa ready as well. And so I can use Alexa and talk through a different product. This is made by Sonos. It's not made by Amazon. And as I showed you earlier, some of the Amazon products, some of these are actually hubs as well. So you can plug Zigbee and Z-Wave into them so you're not stressing out your Wi-Fi. Now, by far, one of the best features of the Amazon ecosystem is Echo's drop-in feature. And I'm just going to show you this feature here. I'm going to play you a little video now, and you can listen to this.
So first, let's dive into Communicate. So if you haven't already, you most likely will need to go into the Amazon application and set up all of these features so that you have functionality to them. So first, let's talk about Drop-In. Drop-In allows you to access other Echo devices in your home or other devices that have been linked to your account through the messaging service. So I could drop in on my parents' house into their kitchen and talk to them without them having to do anything. So let's go ahead and drop in on another room and see what they're doing. So we can either choose to drop in, or we could drop in by voice. Drop in on kids' room.
Hey, what are you doing? Sharing some gum. Sharing some gum.
Oh, that sounds fun. Have you cleaned your room yet?
Yeah.
Okay, so just quick, we'll go to the park for a night.
All right, but what if we don't finish it? No. Hey, meet you here. Bye. Hey.
All right, bye.
You here. Bye.
Next, you have Announce. So you could announce that you're home and it will broadcast a message to all the Echoes in your home. Here you could call somebody via the Echo Show. Here you could message. So I could message my daughter's Echo and then she could message me back and we have a one-to-one conversation like that. Send a message to Adele.
Okay, Brett. What's the message?
Thanks for cleaning your room.
Got it. Should I send it?
Yes.
Sending to Adele.
And then here you can show the contacts you have available. So let's go ahead and use the call feature, and we're going to do this by voice. Alexa, video call Randy Bristow.
Calling Randy Bristow's Alexa devices.
So now if he has multiple devices, like he has an Echo Show, or he has the Alexa app on his phone, it would actually just call his phone and we can video chat that way as well, as long as he has linked his Amazon account. Oh, hey, how's it going?
Fine, how are you?
Good. So you're talking on your Echo Show.
Yes?
Did it ring your phone as well?
No. I just heard it on the Alexa show, and it said Brett Bristow is trying to talk to you.
Okay. And here on screen, I can move my little camera guy around, so if you want him to be in a different corner. All right, so on the Echo Show 5, I do have a 1 megapixel camera, and over on his Echo Show, he does have a 5 megapixel camera, but for the most part, this looks pretty good. All right, and then at any time, I can mute the video on screen, or I can use the mute switch. So here you can see the white icon indicating that they can't see me, and you can see the camera has been turned off there. All right, Mr. Bristow, thanks for the help today.
You bet. Anytime. Good luck.
Okay, sounds good. See you later.
Bye-bye.
So that is how you make a video call. You can also call with voice, and you can also call mobile phone numbers in the US, Canada, and Mexico for free.
So what the feature that is so cool with this is the ability to use the drop-in feature. Now, the drop-in feature was demonstrated here primarily with the kids cleaning their room, but with Mr. Bristow, he dropped in on Mr. Bristow, who was in another location. And we're going to talk about this with Mary in a minute. And so, you know, Mary's daughter, Meg, could simply could drop in on Mary, and all she has to say is drop in on Mary's Arizona room, Mary's wherever, drop in and it will find the device. So it's not actually phoning a phone number, it's just using the drop-in feature. And this is a huge issue. It's a real positive thing when you're talking about communication. And the Google system and the Google doesn't have this. Now you could also phone a phone number and do it. You can do that from this device as well. But the drop-in feature simply is built into all Echo or all Amazon devices. So no matter what device you have, you can use the drop-in feature. And we'll talk about that and how that would help Mary.
So first, let's dive.
So let's talk about the Google Home products. So now there's a whole bunch of those Amazon products, but Google has a whole bunch of these products out as well. And in fact, they just brought, and in fact, Google Home is now known as Google Nest. So, and they have a bunch of products as well. And this is one that this is an advertisement that they're using now for their new Google Nest Home. And they call it the Grandpa Teleporter. And we'll talk about, let's watch how this works.
Dad, come back to the camera. What are you looking for?
There's a rock I showed you, but there's this one.
You showed me that already. The rock that you found.
Looks like a piece of wood.
Yes, the rock that looks like a piece of wood. I think it is a piece of wood, but that's...
It's not in... Yeah.
Okay, maybe it's in that bottom drawer, the one down to the right. Could it be in the attic? Look in your socks drawer, in your car, in the trunk. If you look down at your rug, is there a big lump? Could it be in a book that's actually like a little safe that you open up the book and the first page says dictionary and then it's hollowed out? You know how sometimes things end up in gloves? Might you have done that?
So this is called the Google Home Nest, and this is has just come out in the 10-inch screen, and is as you can see, is a communication tool you can use. Now, I don't have Apple devices. I'm not sure that Apple. I'm sure that there are devices. I'm really not. That's not an area of expertise. But they have the Apple Home Pod, and they hope to have devices that they will communicate with and act within the Apple ecosystem. We also have automatic pill dispensers that will notify when pills have been taken, and we have also smartphone reminders. So there are devices that we can do, even measure for people who can't remember to take their medication. The home security issue is a huge issue and not one that I can talk about in this. It's a whole other presentation that I do, and that's on home security. Needless to say, there are a lot of devices that will protect there, from cameras to lights to doorbells to motion sensors, all sorts of things that you can home automate with and add to the things that you might need to make somebody safe. And it really is too big a topic to do today. Now I want to talk a little bit about social communication. A friend of mine, John Hamlin, who lives in Arizona as well, but he's primarily a Canadian from Nova Scotia on the East Coast. He did a project about 3 or 4 years ago in which he took the Google Home devices and had them placed in seniors' homes, seniors who lived alone in rural areas, who were isolated and very in fragile situations. And they put these in the homes, and they were educated and taught how to use them. And at the end of the I think it was a 1-year study they did, they came out and reevaluated all these seniors who had these devices in there. And it wasn't just that they had protection, what you've seen today, but they also became friends with the devices. And they used these devices for information. They used them for adaptation to their needs, socialization. They frequently talked to these devices. They felt more safe when they had the devices in their house. They thought there was a big entertainment value in that. and they sometimes had a lot of humorous talks with these devices. So there's a lot of other features other than the practical ones that we've seen today, and I call these the socialization features of these devices that can help seniors, particularly if they're living alone by themselves. We're going to finish off tonight by a clip put on by Saturday Night Live, and then I'm going to go over Mary's history, and I'm going to explain what I would recommend for Mary. It's from Saturday Night Live, and you could see how when John Hammond talks about the socialization factor, you can see how that would certainly work. All right, Ma, let's talk about my recommendation for Mary. So first of all, you all are probably going to wonder, you're going, you know, if you look at Mary, and I showed you her arm earlier, and you'll see she doesn't wear a watch. And you all are going to say to me, the first thing I'm going to recommend for Mary is an Apple Watch, and that's not true. And I'll talk about that first. One of the things Mary needs is she needs a cell phone. And I would certainly recommend that she get a cell phone. I would recommend on what type of cell phone. Should she get an iPhone? I would recommend that she gets an iPhone if Meg has an iPhone, because there is a thing called FaceTime that really makes communication between iPhones very valuable and makes it real easy to talk to one another. And it's called FaceTime, and it's only available on iPhones. So I like to talk to people about what type of devices they have and who their caregivers are. If Meg did not have an iPhone, then her daughter, Meg, did not have an iPhone, then I'm not really think that Mary would benefit that much from an iPhone. And certainly she has a pacemaker now, so the atrial fibrillation part of it is not a big deal. So I'm not so sure that an iPhone and an Apple Watch would be there. But if Meg did have an iPhone, then I would certainly recommend Mary do the watch and the phone through Apple. So, and that again, she needs a personal monitoring device, which could be some of the other devices other than an Apple Watch. I would take the Echo Show, which you saw, and I would put an Echo Show in her Arizona room, which is probably an area where she would spend most of her time. And I would have, and if Meg would buy into this, because Meg is, you know, a concerned person, she's an accountant, so she's probably connected to computers all the time. So Meg would have an Amazon device as well, and you could use the drop-in feature to talk back and forth. I'd also put an Echo Dot, one of the smaller devices, in the bathroom. So if Mary did fall, all she'd have to do is talk to it, and she could drop in on Meg or whoever was decided to communicate with. So we could use these devices to add communication, so to affect her isolation. I would put I'd use the Echo Dots. I would use I like the Ring doorbells. I think they offer some security. I'd put a Ring doorbell on the outside of her place, and I would also put some peripheral security lights and cameras up. I think if we did that, I think Mary could live quite a long time independently in a much more secure environment. All of the things that I've suggested you could probably do for under $1,000, and she already has a good, safe, fast internet in the resort. So that's sort of what I would recommend for Mary, something that, you know, her and her daughter could do, and set it up and have a plan. Remember, that was the whole issue here, is have a plan that you can use for emergencies.